Okay, so let's unpack this. Today, we're really getting into a text that I think speaks to a very universal source of anxiety.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about the threat of hidden, unfair, and just profoundly malicious opposition.
Right. And we're not talking about enemies you can see on a battlefield.
No. This is about the ones who operate entirely in the shadows.
Precisely. We're focusing on Song 64, which is a remarkably raw and urgent prayer from King David. It's really a crucial guide for anyone navigating what we could call a secret war.
A secret war, yeah. That constant thread of secret plotting, calculated slander.
And those malicious words that are just designed to destroy your reputation, your peace, everything.
And the mission of this specific analysis, and it's all grounded in the profound source material provided by the UNFIJ team, is, well, it's deeply practical. Our goal here is to equip you, the listener, to completely transform your approach to this kind of anxiety, this kind of opposition.
To move you from that place of vulnerability and, dread.
Right, to a strong, grounded reliance on the certainty of divine justice.
And the psalm itself, it gives us this stunning and complete narrative structure. We start with the desperate, honest petition of a righteous man. It details the pain, the psychological toll of the attack.
And then we move into analyzing the malice itself.
Yes, we meticulously analyze the calculated malice and the specific weapons of the wicked, which are primarily their deceptive words. And then we get to witness the swift, unexpected judgment of God.
Which is the big turning point.
It is. It ultimately shifts the focus right back to the unwavering trust required of his people.
It's a journey from paranoia to peace, really. And our methodology for this is going to be thorough. We're moving through Psalm 64 verse by verse.
We'll be identifying David's cry, defining the nature of his enemy's tactics.
Exploring the promise of God's reversal, and most importantly, pulling out the practical steps for you today. Integrating all those powerful insights from the You Need Faith in Jesus team as we go.
So let's jump right in. Let's start at the very beginning with that urgent petition that reveals David's deepest fear.
Yeah, let's do it. So our deep dive begins, not with the sound of clashing shields or anything like that, but with an admission of deep inner vulnerability.
Which is maybe the most courageous thing a king could confess.
It really is. This is Psalm 64, verse 1. This is David's cry.
Hear my voice, O God, in my prayer. Preserve my life from fear of the enemy.
Okay, so when we read this, we have to remember who is speaking. This is David, the man who killed Goliath.
A seasoned warrior. He faced countless external threats.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yet, his primary petition is not for protection from physical death. It's for deliverance from the emotional and spiritual torment of fear. So in the face of literal life-threatening opposition, why is the preservation from fear the most urgent request for him?
Well, it's just a profound spiritual insight, isn't it? The source commentary from the You Need Faith in Jesus team really points out that David understood the enemy's psychological game. Fear, if you let it go unchecked, is far more debilitating than any physical injury. A physical attack, it might harm the body, but fear.
Fear is different.
Fear, especially the kind that comes from unseen plotting, it paralyzes the will. It destroys rational thought. It isolates the victim.
So if the enemy can plant that spirit of fear, they've already won the inner battle.
They've won, regardless of what happens with their external plot.
It's the difference between fighting an army you can see and fighting the constant paranoia that someone is whispering behind every door. That psychological strain, the uncertainty, it's just exhausting.
It is. And David is being profoundly honest here. He's essentially saying, my natural human resilience is not enough. It's not enough to maintain my inner peace against this relentless, unseen threat.
So this honest admission, this move toward what you could call radical dependence on God to manage his internal state.
That's the first and most critical act of faith in the whole song. And it contrasts so starkly with the world's demand for, self-reliance and stoicism. David is just saying, I need God to preserve my inner integrity from the terror the enemy is trying to impose on me.
And this reliance on divine preservation, it just perfectly sets up the spiritual counterpoint we see in the New Testament.
It does.
If David is asking for the preservation of his mind, the New Testament confirms what God intends to fill that space with.
And we find that wonderful reassurance in the KJV cross-reference, 2 Timothy 1.7.
And what does that say?
For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind.
Okay, let's break down those three elements Paul presents.
Yeah.
Power, love, and a sound mind. How do those directly address the kind of, creeping anxiety David is wrestling with?
Well, think about it. Fear attacks your power. It makes you passive, immobilized.
True.
But God's Spirit gives you the strength and resolve to act righteously, to confront evil, even if that confrontation is purely spiritual.
Okay, so that's power. What about love?
Fear attacks love. It makes you self-focused, suspicious, guarded. It destroys community.
It isolates you.
It does. But God's Spirit grounds you in selfless motivation. And then, perhaps most relevant to David's petition, fear destroys a sound mind.
The clarity.
Exactly. The internal clarity, the stability, the disciplined thinking you need to navigate complex opposition. So when David asks to be preserved from fear, he is asking for the preservation of that sound mind.
So the goal isn't the absence of threats. It can't be.
No.
It's the presence of an internal fortitude that's applied by God, allowing us to think clearly even when the shadows are long.
Absolutely. And this realization leads us right into the practical application, which is so clearly clarified by the You Need Faith in Jesus team.
Right, and their analysis really crystallizes the practical step here. Bringing our fears directly to God is the primary act of faith in this secret war.
That's it. It means we don't try to intellectualize it or suppress the anxiety when people are scheming against us.
You have to voice it.
You voice that fear honestly to God. The practical action is to ask specifically for the preservation of your inner peace. To actively ask Him to guard your heart and mind from the destructive, paralyzing power of fear.
That's the first defensive perimeter.
It is, and it relies entirely on divine strength, not our own personal willpower.
So once David addresses the chaos inside his own heart, he then shifts his focus to the chaos that's brewing outside.
Yes, he defines exactly who and what he's asking protection from. He moves from the general enemy to the specific nature of their plotting. This is Psalm 64, verse 2.
What does he say?
Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity.
This defines the opposition as, well, deeply sophisticated. This isn't a brute force attack. It's a calculated conspiratorial action.
The analysis from our source material really highlights the dual nature of this malice. First, you have secret counsel.
The whispers.
The secretive whispering behind-the-scenes malicious plans. This suggests deliberate, cold, calculated evil. It often involves multiple people coordinating a plot.
And that could happen in a king's court, a modern boardroom.
Or a social setting, anywhere reputations are being systematically undermined.
And then, alongside this cold calculation, you get the insurrection of the workers of iniquity. Now, that sounds like the plan eventually just erupts into something chaotic.
It does. The word insurrection carries the weight of tumultuous, chaotic, and potentially violent intent.
So David's enemies aren't just gossiping.
No, they're meticulously planning evil actions, that's the secret counsel, with the ultimate goal of causing systemic disruption, chaos, and harm. That's the insurrection.
They're working for wickedness.
Yes, hence workers of iniquity. They are deliberate in their choice of evil.
You know, this pattern, the powerful setting themselves against the righteous through hidden means, it feels like such a recurring theme throughout biblical history.
It is.
Yeah.
Especially against those God has chosen or anointed.
Absolutely. The source material draws this crucial connection between David's immediate peril and the broader, timeless opposition faced by God's representatives.
Right. We look to the KJV cross-reference in Psalm 2.2, which speaks of the rulers plotting against God himself.
And that verse is,
The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed.
wow. That reframes the entire opposition, doesn't it? If you feel targeted by secret plotting, it's not just some personal disagreement.
No, it's often rooted in a deeper spiritual defiance against the values and purposes of God.
That's the theological depth here. This human conspiracy against David is a smaller instance of the cosmic conspiracy against God's plan.
And for us, understanding that provides the necessary perspective when we're facing unseen malice. The insights from the You Need Faith in Jesus team remind us of the reality that opposition is often deliberately hidden.
But then how do you practically hide from something you can't see? If you're confident a plot is happening, isn't the natural impulse to, I don't know, become a detective and try to uncover it yourself?
That is the human impulse, yes. But it's a trap. It's a trap that leads right back to fear and paranoia.
So the practical step is different.
The practical step, therefore, is to recognize that genuine, lasting confidence, cannot rest in our own ability to uncover every single plot, every trap, every conspiracy.
We have to avoid that exhausting, isolating work of being our own private investigator.
Exactly. So instead of trying to outsmart the schemers,
You
root your confidence only in God's power to hide and protect you from all unseen dangers. You have to trust that his omniscience gives him infinitely greater foresight than any human scheme, no matter how clever it is.
So you ask him to hide me.
Yes, you ask him to render you invisible and untouchable by the traps they've set in the dark. It's a petition for divine camouflage and defense.
So we're moving now from the plotting phase, the secret counsel, to the active execution of the scheme.
And the primary weapon they use is terrifying precisely because it is so commonplace and so devastatingly effective.
The weapon of speech.
Yes, David reveals the nature of this verbal assault in Psalm 64, verse 3.
What does he say there?
Who whet their tongue like a sword and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words.
The imagery there is just. It's so powerful. It demands analysis. They don't just speak carelessly. They prepare their words for maximum damage. What does it mean that they whet their tongue?
That verb, whet, it signifies deliberate, sustained effort and preparation.
Right.
You sharpen a sword to make sure it cuts deeper and cleaner. This means the wicked are not speaking out of some momentary anger. They are crafting their slander. They're choosing the most wounding details, perfecting the delivery of their lies.
So their tongues are instruments of war.
Not just communication. The source material from the You Need Faith in Jesus team emphasizes that this is a meticulous effort towards destructive speech, intended to inflict a deep moral wound.
And then he compounds that image with the idea of shooting arrows. Bitter words. Why are arrows the perfect analogy for slander?
Well, arrows are designed to strike from a distance, right? The wicked can target the righteous without being physically present, without facing any immediate consequence.
Yeah.
And these bitter words are not gentle critiques. They are arrows laced with venom, intended to inflict pain, destroy a reputation, and spread malice as widely as possible. It is intentional, crafted, and aimed to wound profoundly from a safe distance.
It makes you realize that a vicious rumor or, a calculated lie launched online or in a private meeting can travel faster and cause more extensive damage than any physical confrontation.
It destroys the very fabric of trust.
David profoundly understood the immense deadly potential of the tongue. And this reality, it just transcends the centuries. Scripture consistently warns about the untamable nature of this weapon in human hands.
It does, which leads us directly to the KJV cross-reference in the New Testament from James 3:8.
And James says,
But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil full of deadly poison.
deadly poison. James confirms the severity. The tongue isn't just unruly, it is deadly.
So when we see the wicked in Psalm 64 sharpening their tongues, we recognize they are preparing to unleash that very poison.
And this gives us a profound double warning about speech, which the You Need Faith in Jesus team really outlines for us.
It does.
So let's get into those two practical steps, because step one must be incredibly difficult in, a highly confrontational environment.
It is. Step one is the self-guard. We have to recognize the immense lethal potential in our own speech and make a conscious daily decision to refuse to sharpen our tongue in retaliation.
Because when you're hit by a bitter arrow, the most natural carnal urge is to grab your own quiver and return fire.
Of course, but doing so means you're adopting the enemy's poison as your own weapon.
And the righteous must refuse to become what they despise.
That's the challenge. It requires immense self-control in the face of deep personal hurt.
So if we refuse retaliation, how do we successfully defend ourselves when our reputation or our livelihood is under attack from these bitter words?
That's step two. We entrust our reputation and our entire defense entirely to God.
You have to refuse to engage in counter-slander.
Or even obsessive self-defense. If the enemy's weapon is poison, we must not stoop to drink from their cup or try to use their poison against them. This is the moment where faith moves from just a mental assent to an active decision,
Choosing to wait for divine intervention.
rather than seeking immediate, temporary self-vindication through human means.
Okay, moving to the exact method of attack. David highlights the core moral failing of his enemies, which is, it's cowardice, but it's executed with total arrogance.
Yes. Psalm 64, verse 4, describes the ambush.
It says,
That they may shoot in secret at the perfect. Suddenly do they shoot at him and fear not.
I find the targeting particularly critical there. In secret at the perfect. Why is the identity of the victim, the perfect, so important to David's plea here?
Well, the term the perfect In Hebrew, tamen in this context means the upright, or more specifically, someone who is innocent concerning the specific charge or attack.
So David is stressing that this malice is unprovoked.
Exactly. It's an ambush. It's sudden, it's without warning, and it's aimed at someone going about their business righteously. The wickedness is amplified because the victims are undeserving of this specific malice.
The secrecy and suddenness are key components.
They're designed specifically to catch the victim completely off guard and maximize confusion and damage.
And that phrase, fear not, just reveals the brazen spiritual indifference of the attackers. What does that lack of fear signal about their internal world?
It demonstrates a total disregard for accountability, not just to human authority, but to God. They're arrogant in their sin. They believe their plotting is so clever, so well hidden, that they are entirely unaccountable.
It's the true spirit of the schemer.
It is. They're operating under the delusion of immunity.
And this pattern, this plotting against the innocent, the desire to ambush the unsuspecting, it's a recurring moral hazard we see addressed all through the wisdom literature.
Indeed, it aligns perfectly with the malicious intent described in the KJV cross-reference, Proverbs 1.11.
And that verse says,
If they say, "Come with us, let us lay wait for blood, let us lurk privily for the innocent without cause."
that is a chilling phrase, lurking privily for the innocent without cause. It describes the exact experience David is praying against.
It does.
So when you face these sudden, unjustified attacks on your character or your career, especially when you've done nothing to warrant them, it must create just deep pain and confusion.
It does, and that's why the You Need Faith in Jesus team emphasizes comfort in divine witness here. You feel misrepresented, you feel confused, and you feel this urgent need to set the record straight.
But the instruction is to wait. So how is that comfort made practical?
The practical step is to take comfort in the fact that your ultimate vindication rests securely with God. You don't have to internalize the need to fight every battle of reputation because the ultimate judge sees the innocence of your heart.
He is the divine witness.
He is the divine witness watching the ambush unfold, and resting in that knowledge preserves your energy and prevents you from making defensive mistakes. You simply entrust the unjust attack to the one who sees all.
Now we get an unsettling look into the inner workings, the dynamics of the conspiracy itself.
Yes, wickedness rarely flourishes in isolation. It requires fellowship and reinforcement. David notes this in Psalm 64, verse 5.
Which says,
They encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares privily. They say, who shall see them?
this reveals a critical sociological truth about sin, doesn't it? They don't just happen upon evil. They encourage themselves in an evil matter.
They actively reinforce their sinful intentions within their group, validating their own malice. Then they commune, they plan together meticulously, laying their traps, their snares, in secret.
It's an insidious process.
It's a process of communal malice that fuels itself.
It's the whole infrastructure of deceit. And all that meticulous effort, all that internal encouragement, it rests on one fundamentally foolish and arrogant assumption.
Who shall see them?
Right. They're so confident in their operation of security that they assume they're completely invisible.
And that arrogant question is the terrible, fatal flaw in all conspiracy. They operate under the delusion that their counsel is too deep, their traps too well hidden, for anyone, let alone God, to detect.
They forget the definition of omniscience.
They do. And this kind of brazen disregard for divine sight didn't just earn David's prayer. It drew a specific prophetic condemnation centuries later.
It did, didn't it?
Yes. We see this arrogance directly addressed in the KJV cross-reference from Isaiah 29.15.
And what does Isaiah say to them?
Woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord, and their works are in the dark, and they say, who seeth us, and who knoweth us?
The prophet pronounces woe on them, because their attempt to hide their counsel from the Lord is an impossibility.
The very act of questioning God's sight is what provokes his judgment. It shows a profound structural disbelief in God's presence and sovereignty.
And this gives us two sides of the same coin, as highlighted by the You Need Faith in Jesus team insights.
Omniscience offers both comfort and challenge.
The comfort is absolutely essential for dealing with the anxiety. No matter how deep, how complex, how secretly people plot against you, God sees and hears every single detail.
You rely on his presence as the ultimate infallible witness to the injustice.
You don't need evidence. He has it.
And the challenge is equally binding on us. If the wicked find strength by encouraging themselves in evil, then the righteous must be equally diligent.
We have to ensure that our own community, our own fellowship, is one that encourages righteousness.
that builds faith, that promotes transparency, not one that reinforces deceit, compromise, or sin. We have to actively seek communities that encourage goodness.
Lest we unknowingly fall into our own fellowship of compromise.
Exactly.
And David is clearly not a naive man. He understands the enemy's intelligence and their effort. He acknowledges their thoroughness and their cunning in Psalm 64, verse 6.
They search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search. But the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep.
That phrase, diligent search, it implies that evil is often a matter of intense effort and commitment. What exactly are they diligently searching for?
Well, they're definitely not lazy in their malice. The phrase, they search out iniquities, has a kind of double meaning. First, it means they're actively seeking new ways to commit sin, to develop their existing scheme.
Okay.
But second, and this is perhaps more chilling for the victim, it means they are hunting for faults, diligently searching for weaknesses, past mistakes, or minor flaws in their victim to exploit, exaggerate, or weaponize in their slander campaign.
They are meticulous in their destruction.
So they're not just creating lies out of thin air, they're actively mining for any little piece of truth they can twist.
And David concludes that their inward thoughts, their motivations are deep.
And this is the acknowledgement of the profound capacity for evil that's inherent in the unredeemed human heart. Their motives are complex, their plans are devious, and their true nature is virtually impossible for a human being, especially an upright one, to fully grasp.
He's saying, I cannot fathom the darkness of what they are planning.
Because the human heart itself is an inscrutable abyss.
And this statement about the deceitful heart is one of the most sobering truths in the Old Testament. It's why it connects to that powerful prophetic insight we often reference.
Precisely. This reflection aligns perfectly with the KJV cross-reference in Jeremiah 17.9.
And Jeremiah says,
The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it?
so if the heart is deceitful above all things, then relying on our own emotional intelligence or human wisdom or our ability to psychoanalyze the motives of our hidden enemies it's a fundamentally failing strategy.
You simply don't have the depth of knowledge required to counter such profound wickedness.
Which brings us to the crucial application developed by the UNFIJ in Jesus team. Discernment over naivety.
Yes.
The practical step for the learner is vital here. Do not be naive about the calculated, diligent opposition you may face.
Right. When you're confronted with this kind of deep-seated scheming a plot that is clearly too complex for human hands to unravel, your own wisdom is insufficient.
So we have to rely completely on the Holy Spirit for divine discernment.
Trusting that God's wisdom is infinitely deeper than the most deceitful human heart. We can't see the depths of their malice, but God can, and He knows the best way to expose it.
And this is the moment we've been building toward. This is the dramatic turning point that pivots the entire narrative of the psalm.
Mm-hmm.
After detailing the fear, the plotting, the sharp words, the diligent wickedness, David's petition is met with swift, decisive intervention. Psalm 64, verse 7.
But God shall shoot at them with an arrow, suddenly shall they be wounded.
That word "but," it is massive here.
Changes everything.
It completely interrupts the flow of the wicked's planning. The contrast is so sharp and immediate. They shot sudden, hidden arrows of bitter words.
And God responds with His own arrow of sudden judgment.
The irony is perfect. This is the ultimate moment of divine intervention. The hunters instantly become the hunted.
Caught completely off guard, just as they intended to catch the innocent. And this judgment isn't slow, it's not negotiated, it is a swift, decisive act of divine power that turns the entire situation on its head in a moment.
It definitively proves that God is in ultimate control.
He's stepping in with overwhelming force precisely when the wicked thought they were most secure and hidden.
And what's fascinating, according to the source analysis, is that this intervention is not a panicked reaction from God. His justice is always prepared and measured.
We see that prepared justice emphasized in the KJV cross-reference from Psalm 7.1-13.
And that says,
If he turn not, he will whet his sword. He hath bent his bow and made it ready. He hath also prepared for him the instruments of death. He ordaineth his arrows against the persecutors.
So just as the wicked meticulously whet their tongues and bend their bows,
God has already whetted his sword and made his bow ready.
their planning was diligent, but God's preparation for righteous justice was completed long ago. The instrument of their eventual demise was already ordained and aimed at the persecutor.
And this truth, it provides immense confidence, especially for the righteous who feel overwhelmed by the process of waiting for justice. The application from the You Need Faith in Jesus team urges us to trust the judge.
But I have to ask,
Mm-hmm.
for the listener who is facing daily slander, who's watching their professional or personal life slowly erode because of lies, isn't there a risk that waiting for divine justice feels, I don't know, passive or even weak?
That is the crucial struggle of faith. It really is. And the practical step addresses this head on.
How so?
While you are enduring opposition, you must actively refuse to take matters into your own hands or seek personal revenge. Taking revenge is choosing the way of the wicked, and it often just prolongs the conflict.
So trusting the judge means believing he'll act.
It means believing that God is a God of righteous justice who will act on behalf of his people at the precise right time and in the right way, and it's a way that often achieves a better, more profound vindication than anything we could achieve ourselves.
We trust his timing and his superior, devastating method.
Exactly, and that superior method of judgment is revealed in the very next verse. It demonstrates God's brilliance in perfectly tailored justice. It's the profound poetic irony of the reversal, captured in Psalm 64, verse 8.
And that says, "So they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away."
That is astonishing, isn't it?
It is. The very weapon they sharpened, their slandering tongue, their web of lies, becomes the means of their own downfall. God engineers events so that their own words, their own scheme, condemns them.
It's like a self-destruct mechanism that's triggered by divine timing.
It's the ultimate divine retribution.
The lies they crafted just collapse, trapping the schemers instead of their intended victim. Perhaps they overpromised, maybe they contradicted themselves, or maybe the truth just simply emerged in a way that highlighted the falsity of their earlier counsel.
Whatever the specific mechanism.
The result is that their own malicious effort is turned against them.
It's the consistent biblical principle of the law of retribution at work. That moral certainty that the universe operates under God's law, even when human law fails to catch the plotter.
We can reinforce this principle with the KJV cross-reference in Proverbs 26.27,
Which is,
"Whoso diggeth a pit shall fall therein, and he that rolleth a stone, it will return upon him." This principle is not just some abstract wisdom. David witnesses it being enacted in real time. The schemers are hoisted by their own petard.
and the result of this judgment is so strikingly supernatural and decisive that the witnesses shall flee away. Now, why do they flee? Is it fear of the judge or fear of the judge?
Oh, it's fear of the judge, absolutely. They recoil from the scene in awe and holy fear, recognizing that this was not a coincidence, it wasn't bad luck, it was unmistakable divine judgment.
The public understands that a sovereign power has intervened.
And that the wicked's own words sealed their fate.
This offers immense hope for the learner who is currently under attack, as the "you need faith in Jesus" team really emphasizes.
It does. The practical step here is to hold on to hope in exposure.
So when you're slandered, when you're lied about,
Remain steadfast. Commit to patience. Trust God's timing. Have firm hope that the truth will ultimately prevail, often through God turning the tables and using the very lies, contradictions, and secret counsel themselves to expose the true character of the liar to the watching world.
you don't have to desperately shout to be heard.
No. God speaks through the dramatic consequences he engineers.
The judgment is executed, the wicked are exposed, and now the focus of the psalm shifts completely. It moves from the conflict to its public impact.
Yes. This deliverance is not a private matter for David. It is a lesson intended for the world. Psalm 64, verse 9, details this public result.
And that is,
"And all men shall fear and shall declare the work of God, for they shall wisely consider of his doing."
so the immediate reaction is twofold, as noted in the commentary. First, all men shall fear.
And this is a healthy, reverent awe. It's a realization of God's supreme power and authority over human affairs. They witness the sovereignty demonstrated through the swift, precise judgment of the wicked.
They recognize that if God can do that to hidden schemers, he sees and rules over everything.
Exactly. And second, this awe leads to active proclamation. They shall declare the work of God.
They don't just feel fear silently.
No, they connect the obvious malice of the wicked directly with the precise judgment of God. They testify publicly to what God has done.
And this leads them to wisely consider of his doing. They think deeply about the moral implications of what they have just seen.
They're forced to consider God's absolute justice and his continuous moral rule over the earth. This visible act of power serves as an intended sermon, leading people to recognize his sovereignty and, ideally, to belief.
And this is a pattern God has used throughout history, right? Visible, dramatic acts of power are meant to elicit both reverent awe and belief from the witnesses.
Absolutely. We see this moment historically captured in the KJV cross-reference in Exodus 14.31 after the deliverance at the Red Sea.
And that verse reads,
And the people feared the Lord and believed the Lord. God's visible acts of power against opposition lead directly to awe and belief in his faithfulness.
So the application here, drawn from the insights of the You Need Faith in Jesus team, is about living our lives as conscious witnesses to divine deliverance.
That's the key practical step. When God delivers you from difficulty, when the tables are turned, the lie is exposed, and the hidden plot unravels, you must be quick and intentional to declare the work of God.
Give him all the glory.
All the glory, publicly and privately. And do this so that others around you may see the evidence of his justice, experience that reverent awe, and wisely consider their own need for a relationship with him.
Your personal deliverance should serve as a powerful sermon for your sphere of influence.
It should.
And so we conclude this deep dive into the psalm with the proper inward response of the righteous, which is a glorious and lasting satisfaction.
Yes, the focus shifts entirely away from the vanquished enemy and rests upon God himself. This is Psalm 64, verse 10.
And it says,
The righteous shall be glad in the Lord and shall trust in him, and all the upright in heart shall glory.
so their gladness isn't rooted in relief that the bad guys are gone. It's that their God is faithful. Their joy is entirely sourced in the Lord himself.
It's a joy that's independent of circumstances. The trial, though painful, served its purpose. It deepened their relationship and cemented their faith.
As a direct result of seeing God's faithfulness in action, they shall trust in him more completely.
The whole painful process becomes a training ground for stronger reliance. And furthermore, the upright in heart shall glory or boast, but their boasting is not in their own endurance or their own cleverness.
They're boasting only in their great, saving God, who delivered them from such complex malice.
It's a powerful validation that difficult circumstances, when you navigate them through faith, ultimately produce greater gladness, purer praise, and strengthened trust.
And this is a foundational principle that continues right into the New Testament.
Our ultimate source of gladness and rejoicing is meant to be constant, because it is rooted in our unchanging and faithful God, not dependent on the stability of our external circumstances.
Which brings us to our final KJV cross-reference, a powerful exhortation.
Yes, from Philippians 4.4. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again I say rejoice.
And the command is always. Even while enduring the sudden arrows, even when the secret counsel is plotting, we maintain that inner rejoicing.
Because you know the divine reversal is coming. The gladness precedes the deliverance because it rests in the character of the deliverer.
Exactly. And the final application, which is summarized so beautifully by the You Need Faith in Jesus team, centers on deepening trust.
It does.
The practical step is to intentionally use every difficulty and every subsequent deliverance as a chance to increase your gladness, strengthen your trust, and give God all the glory.
You view the experience as vital preparation, a foretaste of the ultimate and everlasting joy promised by Jesus Christ, when all hidden enemies will be completely revealed and forever defeated.
So we've traced a remarkable journey through this secret war detailed in Psalm 64. We moved from David's honest admission of crippling fear in verse 1.
Through the excruciating pain of bitter words and calculated slander in verses 3 and 4.
To the astonishing precise reversal, engineered by God in verses 7 and 8, and culminating in renewed, resilient trust and public glory in verse 10. The core principle that's been distilled from all our source material is this. The key to surviving the secret war is shifting our focus entirely from the enemy's meticulous, complex plot to God's sovereign wisdom and his prepared, decisive justice.
And that shift from self-defense to divine reliance is everything. The final practical takeaway, which is clearly articulated through the insights of the You Need Faith in Jesus team, is that your greatest defense against hidden opposition is transparent, radical faith.
So by voicing your deep fear honestly to God, not to gossips, not to critics, but to the Almighty, and entrusting your entire defense to him,
You activate a precise justice. And it's a justice that is perfectly tailored to use the enemy's own actions, their tongue, their secrecy, their arrogance against them.
it is a profound, even awe-inspiring thought that God uses the very method of the wicked, their detailed planning and weaponized words, as the means for their own defeat.
While simultaneously instructing the righteous and declaring his power to the world.
This psalm is just a startling theological study of justice.
It really is. It shows that divine judgment is often perfectly congruent with the specific sin committed. The tongue that was sharpened for malice is the tongue that falls upon itself in condemnation. And this raises an important and I think provocative question for you, the listener, to explore long after this deep dive concludes.
And what's that question?
If God's judgment is so precise in addressing the bitter words and secret counsel of external enemies, how diligently and with what level of honesty must we monitor and guard our own deep and deceitful heart? Knowing that our hidden thoughts and internal temptations are ultimately more visible to Him than any carefully constructed counsel of our external adversaries.
The principles of this psalm apply just as fiercely to the secret war within.
They do.
Yeah.
And you can explore this wisdom further with the resources from the You Need Faith in Jesus team.